Good evening and welcome to the City of Roswell Mayor and City Council meeting for September the 18th, 2023. I am Mayor Kurt Wilson. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues and the council members present. Councilmember Sarah Beeson, Councilmember Christine Hall, Councilmember Lee Hills, Councilmember William Mortland, and I understand Councilmember Michael Palermo is on his way. At this time, I'd like to now turn it over to our City Administrator, Mr. Randy Knighton, to explain how the meeting's run. Mr. Knighton.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. Good evening, everyone. In accordance with Section Chapter 3.70 of the City Code, the City Council shall hold regular public meetings. The purpose of City Council meetings are for the public to participate and speak on agenda items which constitute formal decisions by the elected body. These items are listed on the published agenda, which can be accessed via the city website prior to the meeting. This is a public meeting, and some items do require a formal public hearing. A significant and important component of city council meetings are for the elected body to hear directly from residents on the items listed on the agenda. Public comments or questions are essential for mayor and council to incorporate as they contemplate each decision. Residents are at the top of the organizational chart of the City of Roswell, and therefore it is imperative for mayor and council to hear from residents in these meetings. And if you would like to speak on an item, we ask that you fill out a comment card, which can be found at the back of the room or at the podium. We ask, of course, that everyone observe the principles of mutual respect and display the appropriate demeanor during the meeting this evening, which is and should be reflective of this great community. The mayor is the presiding officer and will ensure the orderly exchange of comments, questions, and discussion leading to decision making by the elected body. We do encourage those in attendance and the viewing audience to visit the city website for meetings, events, and departmental information. We also encourage everyone to review and participate in the various activities in the city of Roswell, and to visit roswell365.com for a calendar of events. There are a number of events upcoming in the city of Roswell, which we will discuss shortly, with some other announcements, which all promote physical activity and leisure as we all make Roswell the #1 family community in America. Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. Thank you again, sir, as always. At this time, I'd like to call Dory Griggs, City of Roswell Fire Department Chaplain, to the front for the invocation and moment of silence.
I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege to thank the city council members and the residents of Roswell who showed up yesterday in support of firefighter and life safety educator Chad Miller and his wife Emma in their bid to become homeowners through Extreme Makeover Home Edition. We appreciate the great show of support. Now please join me. Holy One, thank you for the opportunity to gather here tonight to discuss the business of our great city. We give thanks to all our military, and tonight recognize one of Roswell's own, electronic warfare technician Edward Joseph Class II. Be with all the members of our military, active duty, and veterans. Guide our mayor, city council, and staff as they do the work of our city. Help them to make sound decisions in the best interest of all our residents. Watch over our first responders. Give them wisdom, strength, and courage to carry out their responsibilities. Grant them safety each and every day. Be with each of us here tonight as we leave this place and return home. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain Dory Griggs. Ed, I'd like to apologize to you. I didn't get down there to come see you before we got started, and so I know of your reputation, your great service to our city. Thank you. At this time, Ed, I'd like to call United States Navy electrician warfare technician Edward Joseph Claus to come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mayor and Council, thank you very much for this honor. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, Mr. Claus, I'm going to ask you to stay up there And I'd like to ask the council to come down for the first item under the mayor's report, which is the reading of a proclamation for the esteemed veteran of Roswell Award to United States Navy electronic warfare technician Edward Joseph Claus II. And it's class, right? All right. We'll work on that.
Hey,
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight.
Proclamation, Office of the Mayor, Edward Joseph Class II, esteemed United States Navy veteran. Whereas Ed Class is a third-generation Navy man, his ancestors have served this nation in the military in every generation since before the Revolutionary War. December of 1983, Ed enlisted in the United States Navy in Chicago, Illinois. Ed swore the oath of enlistment and attended basic military training at Recruit Training Command, Orlando, Florida. After passing review at the graduation ceremony, Ed was recognized as Honor Recruit of Company 235 based upon demonstrated superior performance in the areas of academics, physical readiness, recruit leadership, and commitment to Navy core values. Following basic training, he underwent basic electricity and electronics training at Naval Training Center, Orlando. Subsequently, Ed was assigned to Electronic Warfare Class A School at Navy Technical Training Center, Corey Station, Pensacola, Florida, where he learned the specific skills needed for his job as an electronic warfare technician. Whereas having his choice of orders, Ed selected as his first duty station the amphibious command ship USS Mount Whitney LCC-20, the U.S. Navy's finest warship and the flagship for Commander Second Fleet, Commander Striking Fleet Atlantic, homeported in Norfolk, Virginia. Mount Whitney was and is the most sophisticated command, control, communications, computer, and intelligence ship ever commissioned. Mount Whitney was also the first U.S. Navy combatant to permanently accommodate women on board. And whereas as an electronic warfare technician, Ed served a key component of the ship's warfighting team. His primary role was to assist in early warning of potential threats against the ship and to identify and defend against anti-ship missiles. Ed held high-level security clearances and was highly trained in intelligence of Soviet-era ships, aircraft, land-based emitters, and their associated weapons and radars. During this assignment, his crew executed dry dock repairs and modernization services at Norfolk Naval Shipyard in Portsmouth, Virginia, followed by refresher training at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, which consisted of inspections, drills, and battle exercises designed to test every capability of the ship. In September 1986, he and his shipmates participated in Operation Northern Wedding, a NATO Cold War naval military exercise involving 10 Western nations, 150 ships, and 35,000 troops in a major test of NATO's ability to rearm and resupply Western Europe during times of war with the Warsaw Pact. And whereas in May of 1987, Ed completed his active duty enlistment, was honorably discharged, and returned to Chicago to further his post-secondary education. He continued his unbroken Navy service in the U.S. Naval Reserve and was assigned to Mobile Technical Unit 2 at Naval Station Great Lakes near Waukegan, Illinois. During those years, he served on board the frigate USS Rourke, FF 1053, and deployed with various mobile technical units around the world, most memorably Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. In December 1991, his enlistment again being completed, Ed was honorably discharged from the U.S. Naval Reserve. And whereas Ed serves in several leadership positions across the local, state, and national level, where he truly exemplifies service above self, as a leader of the National Association of Landscape Professionals. His work includes participation for over 20 years in a signature program, Renewal and Remembrance at Arlington National Cemetery. Each July, landscape professionals from around the country donate their time and expertise to enhance the hallowed grounds of ANC, to honor the men and women buried there. Now, therefore, I, Kurt M. Wilson, Mayor of the City of Roswell, Georgia, do hereby name Edward Joseph Class II, esteemed veteran of Roswell, and call upon all our citizens to recognize his outstanding service to our country and our community, and that there is no higher calling than those who serve the United States Armed Forces. Would you like to say a few words to everybody?
Wow. That's very, very humbling. Thank you for my friends who showed up tonight to see me receive this honor. I loved my time in the Navy, and it's opened so many doors for me since. I highly recommend it for anybody. If you've got children or grandchildren who are interested in serving our country, there's no higher service than to actually serve in the armed forces in uniform. As again, thank you everybody for this honor, and I love Roswell.
Let's open your proclamation up.
Oh, yes.
Picture.
Thank you, Lee.
Of course. Come down.
All right. Roger, come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Edward Class, thank you.
Likewise, sir. Thank you. You're a great Roswell resident. Thank you for your service. No, great to see you. Yeah, you too. Good to see you.
Take care.
You too. Will.
Everybody here? Okay, next on the mayor's report, we have a very special piece that's not on your agenda that I'd like to introduce, and it's make a special presentation. I'd like to say thank you for the Roswell Friends. They're going to be presenting CHOA, the Children's Health Care of Atlanta, with a check for $108,000. And here tonight we'll be presenting a letter from Governor Brian Kemp, is our Mayor Pro Tem Christine Hall, and Roger Wise, Jr., Capital Ambassador, as well as Sarah Simmons, representing Roswell Friends. This letter thanks Roswell Friends for the $108,000 they've raised for the children served by CHOA. So at this time, I'd like to call Roger and Sarah and Christine down to for the next piece. Welcome. Yes, ma'am.
While Christine is coming down, I don't need a microphone. Once a sergeant, always a sergeant. I live in the subdivision of Horseshoe Bend, and we have a nucleus of ladies in Horseshoe Bend, and they call themselves Roswell Friends. I don't need that.
They can't hear you for
Okay.
the people that are watching
Okay,
remotely.
okay, I'm sorry. They call themselves Friends of Roswell, or Roswell Friends. They have done some outstanding work. Children's Healthcare of Atlanta is one of the premier places for children's health care in the United States of America. They started raising funds for Children's Healthcare of Atlanta many, many years ago. To date, they have given over $108,000 to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. So when I brought this to the governor's attention, he said, we need to do something special for these people. We need to let them know how much the state of Georgia appreciates what they're doing for Children's Health Care of Atlanta. So he asked me, as his capital ambassador, Mayor Pro Tem is joining me, and we're presenting to Roswell Friends and the Horseshoe Bend Country Club greetings. On behalf of the state of Georgia, I want to thank the Roswell Friends and Horseshoe Bend Country Club for their support of Children's Health Care of Atlanta. Efforts such as yours are essential to keeping our state strong and its people prosperous. They do an annual golf thing at Horseshoe Bend every year. I hope this year's golf tournament was a memorable experience for the many guests, residents, players, and supporters who took part. It is always exciting when Georgians come together to support a worthy cause. Thank you again for all you do to make Georgia the best place to live, work, and raise a family. Sincerely, Brian Kemp. So we want to thank you and your organization for what you have done and what you continue to do. This is coming from the children that you help and the families that you help. So thank you so much.
I would also like to just thank all of the moms that come out and volunteer their time, even if they are full-time working, in order to help us raise funds for a very, very important cause for all of us. And also thank you, Roger, for giving us a little bit of attention for what we're doing for a great cause. Thank you.
And on behalf of Mayor Wilson, my colleagues on council, and all of the residents of Roswell, thank you both for your contributions not only to children's health care and children in our area, but the city of Roswell. And one more special little announcement. Mr. Wise is having a birthday, and it's today. So I'd like to wish him a happy birthday on this special day.
82 and still going strong. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council members, for allowing us this opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, say thank you to our Capital Ambassador, Mr. Roger Wise, Sarah Simmons, a Roswell friend, and to our Pro Tem, Christine Hall. Thank you so much. Got one more, sorry. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Christine. The last item on the mayor's report is upcoming events, and I think there might be a few other announcements. I'd like to turn over to my colleague, Councilmember Lee Hills.
Great, thank you, Mayor Wilson. Would like to continue to encourage you to go check out www.roswell365.com. That is a one-stop shop for all sorts of information regarding what's going on in the city of Roswell. Our local merchants can submit public activities on there. Homeowners associations may. We, of course, have our city events posted on there, and they're listed by genre, by date, and by fund. So please go check that out. If you have something going on that you'd like to promote that is Roswell-based, you may load that in also. We've got some help behind the scenes on that. So when you log in, you'll be able to check that out. But please take advantage of it. More information is being put on there every single day. We also have our next to the last Alive in Roswell coming up on September the 21st. That is the third Thursday of every month, April to October. That's from 5 to 9 in our downtown area, specifically on Canton Street in the downtown area. It is a free and family-friendly event. One of our local off-premise catering bartenders sponsors a celebrity bartender every year, and I believe Councilmember Beeson is this month. So that's a lot of fun. Be sure and stop in between Ips and Spirited and see Councilmember Beeson pour and smile, and you can tip away for her because she gets to choose a. Have you chosen your charity? Chosen a charity to
Yes.
donate to?
So all proceeds or tips that I receive for my guest bartending on Thursday will be going towards Homestretch, which is a Roswell-based organization that helps those facing homelessness provide more stable housing.
So the tips that she receives will be complimented by Scott Harb, the owner of Top Job Beverage. He will compliment her tips with a $500 donation to that charity as well. So we've all gotten to do that. I believe, Councilmember Palermo, are you October? Okay, so not to dwell on that, but it is a fun event, so bring your wallet, bring your smiles, and bring your friends. Then we have on Sunday, September 23rd. Oh, yes, ma'am.
And congratulations for taking top tips so far. I was top until Councilmember Hills did her bartending.
I did.
Congratulations.
I will not take that nod lightly by giving another nod to Vet Buds, which was my charity of choice. So that is veterans supporting local veterans. Thank you, Councilmember Hall.
Sounds
So
like you're raising the stakes on poor Sarah.
I know. We're putting the pressure
Councilmember
on.
Beeson.
So thank you. Roswell Day of Hope is Saturday, September the 23rd, and that is here at City Hall grounds from 12 to 4, all across our grounds here. We will have, this is the 14th annual Day of Hope, and this event offers free basic services to those in need while offering an afternoon of fun for all. So please stop by, check it out. If you haven't been before, you should definitely peek in. A lot of opportunities to serve and a lot of opportunities to see. So we'd love to have you. If you have any other questions or want some more information about that, visit hoperoswell.org, and there's more information listed there. Also on Saturday, September 23rd from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Smith Plantation right next door. This is a taste of resilience, and it's where you can observe and learn about the food ways of American enslaved people. So food historian Clarissa Clifton and Chef Cheryl Henry. I do not know Chef Cheryl, but I will tell you, Clarissa is a show you cannot miss. And when I mean show, it is the most natural thing ever, and her cooking is great. I've got iron skillets, but she is a master. It is unbelievable. She's just so humble and so educated on how things were done back in the day with the enslaved people that helped found this city. So please stop in. That's from 10 to 3 on Saturday, September 23rd. You can wander around the recently cleared grounds and see the before, because we have a lot of additions and landscape renos that our entire city and all our visitors will be able to enjoy coming really soon. More on that later. Also, Saturday, September 23rd, 7 p.m. at Riverside Park, we have Roswell Riverside Sounds, and this is the longest-running free outdoor concert series. You can bring a picnic, you can bring a friend, bring your kids, bring your dog on a leash. This month features Jackie Venson, and a multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter known far and wide for her complexity, beautiful music, and blazing guitar skills, so you don't want to miss that. And then finally, do you have something there?
Is that the last one of the year?
That I'm not sure. I think everything.
Okay, so there's
was.
one in October.
Yeah.
September is the last one.
Yes. All right, so
Okay.
you don't want to miss this. blazing guitar skills. Remember that. Then also want to tell you that Roswell Arts Fund Pathways program down at Don White Park is wrapping up on September 30th. If you haven't been, go check that out on Riverside Drive. There's all sorts of temporary artwork installed, some that's sculptural, some that's in trees, some that's suspended. We've had 2 months of entertainment down there as well. It's free, and that does wrap up on September 30th. If you want more information on that, go to roswellartsfund.org/pathways. So that's all I've got, Mayor. You take it from here, sir.
Thank you, Lee, appreciate it. Just one last note, personal privilege here on the mayor's report. So Friday is the 22nd, I believe, Friday the 22nd. And unfortunately for the city of Roswell, but a giant gain for the city of Atlanta. And it's obviously speaks well of Randy and his team that bigger fish come recruiting. But I want to say personal thanks and say a goodbye here formally and publicly to a person who has done a tremendous job of serving the city of Roswell, its staff, and its residents, and that's Lenore Bromberg, who's been our assistant ComDev director. So Lenore, stand. I want everybody to say hi to you. This Friday is Lenore's last day, and she's done a great job for us. So. And I can tell you that behind the scenes, Lenore, everybody knows, is incredibly talented and smart and brilliant and has added so much to all of us and myself especially. So Lenore, thank you so much for everything. We'll miss you very, very much. And with that being said, that ends the mayor's report. Next is the consent agenda. And I'd like to know if the council has any questions or comments regarding any items on the consent agenda. That being said, is there any Roswell residents that have? Yes, ma'am. Any comments in reference to any item on the consent agenda? Welcome, Janet Russell, Roswell resident.
Janet Russell, Roswell resident. Item number 2, PTV crossings and 1 new pathway. I was reading where you want to have these PTV crossings. I am stunned that someone, and I'd like to know who, requested a PTV crossing across Highway 9 from the Oxbow extension to Oxbow Road across a 4-lane highway that is already a death trap with the new Oxbow Road entrance. Somebody must have requested it personally who owns a PTV and wants to use it. Why in the world otherwise would you do that? I know it has to be approved according to this by the state because it's crossing a state highway, but that's got to be sheer lunacy. For any of us that live there and go through that intersection now, the traffic is backed up at at Oak Street, at Oxbow Road, at the town square on both sides. And going back, people that are going home to East Cobb are flying through there. And there will be, and I want this as a matter of record, if you get it approved, there will be a fatality within 3 months. And I don't think we need that. And I'd like to know who personally requested to have a PTV crossing at that highway. Because we do that in this city. We have people that need special things, and so we jump through a hoop to make it happen. And I don't think the residents of the area need to be worried about it. I see people riding these PTVs with their kids on the back, no seatbelt, no helmet, thinking that they're in an armored truck going down the road when they're on that's on Canton Street. Wait till they hit Highway 9. We already have an accident every day at the corner of Highway 120, just about. So my question is, if they need to cross Highway 9, they can go 1 more block to the historic square where the road is 1/3 the width, already has an existing light, and goes from a one-way parking lot across to a 25-mile-an-hour street called Sloan Street, if their destination is the other side of the road. So I would like to have that pulled out and said, not just no, but hell no.
Yes, sir. Welcome. Do me a favor, share me with, welcome, first time visitor?
Yeah, first time.
We're so glad you're here.
My name is Ryan Mitzel. I live at 280 Knollwoods Terrace, and I am here to voice my support for the PTV crossings. I moved to Roswell because it's PTV friendly. I own a PTV. I go down Canton Street, I'm excited about the speed limit on Mimosa being changed to 25, so I can now access Town Hall, or Town Square. I want to be able to take my kids across Highway 9 down Oxbow in a safe manner. And I presented, and I really appreciate you guys. I emailed in support of this, and you guys responded very quickly. I'd like to also talk about the, what's the park at the end of Oak Street? Going mind blank. Waller Park, yeah. There's a paved connector to the Grove Parkway, or the Grove Park, that is currently used for lawnmowers that I'd like to potentially look into converting into a PTV path as well. So I could take my kid to soccer on Fridays and go get a beer at Oak Street Bottle Shop or anything like that. So that's it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other Roswell residents that would like to address the matter? Just FYI, the Janet, thank you. Just FYI, the Oxbow Road connector, I don't know if you know this, so thank you for mentioning Magnolia, recent development. The speed limit is now 25 miles per hour, which is a great development. And also additionally, the Oxbow Road connector speed limit is 25 miles per hour. So both significant conditions of change, and I want to thank all the leadership of the elected body and Mr. Knighton and his team for getting those things done. Any other comments or thoughts from Roswell residents on the consent agenda? Being none, I bring it back to the council. Yes, sir, Councilmember Morthland.
While we're talking about the PTV cruisers, I'd just like to remind everybody to get their PTV registered with the city of Roswell.
Yeah, and I think to Will's point, the police will be coming out with videos shortly. So we had a really bad accident about 6 weeks ago in one of our subdivisions where we had youngsters driving a golf cart, fancy term PTV, and the youngsters were unsupervised, and they were all well under the age of 16, and we had some very serious accidents. And so I think the police are currently doing some videos on public safety and reminding particularly parents of the responsibilities of driving a PTV in a golf cart, because it's serious business, and people can get hurt, and to kind of to Janet's point is, you know, it's our job from a public safety perspective to make sure we don't have a fatality on a golf cart or a PTV. So any other thoughts? Yes, sir, Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. Ironically, I was going to start out saying that that I had no idea who requested the this because I have been very vocal that I do want to create more crossings and make it easier for residents that do want to create just safer crossings. And that being said, I then, once the speaker got up, this gentleman, I did remember that email. And actually, I think it's a great reminder for all Roswell residents, because this gentleman that spoke had emailed the mayor and council and actually pointed out some areas that hadn't been thought about. And so I think it's just really a reminder with this mayor and council that really any Roswell resident, if you have some ideas, you do have the opportunity to really have some influence. And with that, as I've said multiple times before, that all through Roswell, in our downtown, outside of our downtown, on the east side, on the west side, I'd like to make it easier for neighborhoods and businesses and residents to have safer crossings and better mobility. And I certainly understand the points brought up earlier of the concerns around safety, which are legitimate. And I think that's where what we really need to focus on is what can we be doing to make it safer for anybody crossing, whether they're walking, on a bicycle, or on a PTV. I think that really needs to be our focus. I'll tell you, I'm very proud that when we had put in this crossing that connects the City Hall parking lot to next to Vaz Cucina and the East Alley, and ultimately that has really slowed down traffic right there and created a lot more safety right in that location, and you can cross a lot quicker than the existing one that we had for years. So very proud of that, and that obviously took a long time because of GDOT. And it's amazing the lightning speed that this mayor and council ran with last year for doing the connection right by the Variant Brewery. And again, just an opportunity to create some more safety by having that raised median. And again, anywhere throughout the city, I want to make it easier to for any type of crossing. So again, I certainly will be supporting this, and want to make sure it's clear to RDOT that we're absolutely focusing on how do we make any and all crossings as safe as possible.
Thank you, Mike. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions from Councilmember Beeson?
To Councilmember Morthland's point, one more reminder that came out of committee, that folks can only ride these PTVs on the approved pathways. It is on a map on the City of Roswell's website. So if you do go to the City of Roswell's website, search PTVs, you can see the map. And if you do want to request connectivity or these connections like we have tonight, you can easily reach out to the city. There is a form on there to request one of those connections. And I want to appreciate Mayor and Council for approving in committee the connection that was added, which is the additional one new pathway connecting Edenwald and Wexford that I mentioned in the meeting. That's an example of when you have two separate streets that are 25 miles per hour and you need to cross a street that is not 25 miles per hour, it needs to be an approved connection. So if you know of one in your neighborhood, you can request it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions? Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Hall.
I'll just weigh in and remind folks that we also do have a policy that you can crowdfund basically, or you can fund between your neighborhoods a PTV crossing on your own as well. So if there's two neighborhoods that want to be connected, maybe it's not completely public serving where taxpayer dollars would be directed towards that, you yourself can do that between the neighborhoods. We have that option.
Thanks, Christine. Anybody else? Nobody's going to bring up, hey, you got to get a permit? Oh, Will, you did? Sorry, Will. My bad, man. All right. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions on the consent agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Hills. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Palermo. All those in favor of passing the consent agenda, please raise your hands. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right. Next is the first community development item, and I'd like to ask Councilmember Palermo to read the first item.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. Item number 1, approval of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code, Article 4, Corridors and Nodes Districts, Section 4.5.2, Use Table, and Article 9, Use Provisions, Section 9.7.19, Outdoor Storage, General. This is the first reading. Ms. Bromberg?
Hold on just one second, Michael. Thanks so much. Thanks, appreciate it, Michael. City Attorney Davidson, would you please read the first item?
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Article 4, Corridors and Node Districts, Section 4.5.2, Use Table, and Article 9, Use Provisions, Section 9.7.19, Outdoor Storage, General. Now therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend Article 4, Corridor and Nodes Districts, Section 4.5.2, Use Table, and Article 9, Use Provisions, Section 9.7.19, Outdoor Storage, General of the Unified Development Code, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this is the first reading.
Lenore, I'm sorry, and I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this item before we got started. I think it's going to be simpler than you think it is. So, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. So just quickly, this was initiated in July. It was heard by Planning Commission in the middle of August, and tonight is the first reading. Based on the recommendations made by Planning Commission as well as the meetings that have happened between staff and council, staff is making a recommendation before we move into the presentation of the item to defer this to the October 24th, 2023 Community Development Transportation Committee meeting to consider those recommendations by Planning Commission and the outdoor storage accessory uses. Just as a note, the first reading of the text amendment would then be anticipated to be on November 13th. Staff is prepared to present the item if council so chooses, but I will defer to Councilmember Palermo on what he would like to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir. Michael.
Yeah, so there is certainly discussion I want to have because I want to understand. I think I would like you to present just the aspects and specifically around Planning Commission's recommendations and what the concerns around those were, and then basically with that discussion, I'd want to look and see if this council would want to move the first reading forward tonight, or would there be a preference to defer it? But if we're to defer it, my motion would not be for October 24th, and I would be looking to defer it to a sooner council meeting than October 24th.
So just for clarity.
Oh, I'm sorry, committee meeting, yeah.
So Mike, you just asked, hey, Lenore, what challenges do you have with the Planning Commission's recommendations? I think that's the first thing we'd like to know.
Yes,
And
correct.
Sure, absolutely. It's not necessarily challenges, but in the various meetings we've had with council members, there was not a consensus on agreeing with everything the way that it was presented. And because of the continued conversations, it was actually brought to staff it was suggested to staff to consider it. And we agree that given the discussions we've had, there's a lot of great information, which I'll be happy to present, the Planning Commission brought forward, but it was a big change. And so to make sure that everybody was comfortable with all the terminology and exactly how it would be formatted, we didn't have enough time to be able to have consensus from everyone and meet with everyone prior to tonight, and that was why that recommendation was made. But I'm happy to present the information to those who weren't at those meetings.
I think it may be simple, but I maybe, this one may be simple. You're saying no or yes? I think so too. I think this one may be simple based upon the Planning Commission's recommendations, which I understood to be pretty simple, which kept it pretty unique to the Home Depot piece, did it not? Kept it pretty specific to Home Depot and made it fairly, it looked like it was pretty simple recommendation. There's difference of opinion? Mike? Yes, sir.
So I want to say, I actually think it's, I think it needs to be the reminder that it's absolutely not specific to any one place or anything like that, because this is obviously something that would affect the code, and anybody that follows fits within these requirements within the code. That being said, when first brought forward, I obviously wanted to make sure that basically what I want to make sure is we're not doing something that's just going to open the door to completely changing a part of our city or anything like that. And it seemed to me like what Planning Commission had accomplishes that big picture goal. So I just want to understand kind of what the concerns would be and any recommendations from staff. But that being said, I do think it could be simple enough as moving it forward to tonight, but just want to make sure we make sure that it's resolving any concerns.
Christine? Yes, ma'am.
So my concern was, I think there was one other piece that we needed to look at as far as definitions, and there could be perhaps misinterpretation if we apply this in one area and not the other, and I'm not sure that ComDev had enough time to pull that together.
Lenore?
That was a very good summary, sir.
Okay. Well, looking over the Planning Commission's piece, I thought this was going to be easy because it looked like a very simple recommendation, boom, bam. That's what I think. Sarah, yes, ma'am.
In some ways, Councilmember Hall actually had an excellent point when we were doing our meetings over the last couple of weeks, that there is some language that, there's some conflicting language in it. I think it is very simple once those concerns are addressed, and then it can move quite quickly, but at this point, I did agree with the recommendation originally to defer, but
Okay.
I will leave it to y'all.
So is there a motion to defer? Councilmember Palermo?
Well, what I'd like to do then, if it's, from what I'm hearing from everyone even, is it sounds like it's pretty simple. I'd like us to consider not deferring this to the October 24th committee, but perhaps deferring this to an upcoming council meeting, which would just give staff the opportunity to clarify anywhere there might be confusion.
Fair enough.
Because, and a reminder for anyone here is tonight's the first reading, and even if it did pass tonight, there's still a second reading. So therefore, if we're deferring this first reading, it would still have to pass at a first reading, and then there'd still be a second reading. And so that's why I lean towards wanting to defer this to a council meeting for a first reading, not deferring this to October 24th committee meeting, which would then bring us back to a first reading in November.
This is pretty simple stuff.
Yes.
I mean, this is a 5-minute. So can I suggest, are you open to deferring it to next Monday, the 25th?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to make a motion?
I will motion to defer this to the Monday, September 25th, mayor and council meeting.
Motion made by Councilmember Palumbo to defer this to the, yes, ma'am.
I have a question for ComDev. Is that enough time for y'all to be able to clarify that language?
We would have to be able to meet with every single one of you this week, and I don't believe that's possible.
That's a concern of mine. So I find with,
Tomorrow, because agenda review is at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
I'm good with Councilmember Palermo's recommendation to go straight to council.
The agenda
So we
review,
could do that as long as we can get those meetings scheduled this week.
you got a meeting on Friday, right, with everybody? We're together, all of us, Friday, and we'll put it on the agenda. Fair enough? Fair enough? Is that okay, Sarah?
I will defer to staff as to if that's
We will do
enough
our
time for them.
best.
Yep.
Okay. So there's, yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'd say I definitely do want to stick with the Monday, September 25th. I'd say I don't see the onus on staff of meeting on this item because of just the clarity and how close it seems like it is. I'd say the onus is on any elected official, if you have any questions or concerns, to definitely make sure you're asking those questions. But I think it's pretty reasonable that staff just focus on September 25th and not focus on everyone's calendar or anything like that.
All right, so a motion is on the floor by Councilmember Palermo. There's a motion made to defer this item to the Monday, September 20th. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Christine Hall. All those in favor of deferring this particular motion to next Monday's city council meeting on September 25th, please raise your hand.
So before we vote, I would like the opportunity for any public comment if anyone cannot join on Monday, September 25th.
I have, honestly, I'm good. We're moving on. I'm not asking for comment on this. It can be addressed next Monday.
Well, no, my concern would be if someone's, I can't get a babysitter or out of town, I would just want to know if anybody came for this item and can't make it September 25th.
I don't think this item's substantial enough to ask for a significant debate on this issue, Mike. But if, Michael, you want to hear public comment on this debate, on
And
this question?
only if they can't come on September 25th.
Only if they can't come. All right. So that being the precursor, is there any Roswell residents that would like to address the motion before the body that would not be available to come back next Monday for comment? Would anybody who cannot be here next Monday like to address this matter? Thank you, Mike, for the clarification. Since there are none, there's a motion on the floor. There's a second. All in favor of deferring this item to, yes, ma'am? Okay. All in favor of deferring this item till next Monday's city council meeting, Marion City Council, Monday, September 20th, please raise your hands. Deferred till next Monday. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lenore and Jackie. All right, Councilmember Palermo.
Item number 2, approval of a resolution for adoption of the short-term work program and capital improvement element. Mr. Gaines?
All right, thank you, Councilman Palermo, and good evening, everyone. This item is to approve a resolution for adoption and transmittal of the city's updated short-term work program and capital improvement element. These documents are required by our city to be updated annually, given the fact that we have the ability to impose impact fees for new development. So having the updated CIE and short-term work program is an annual exercise in order to maintain qualified local government status with the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. We initially transmitted our submission for this year's updates to the Atlanta Regional Commission, who reviews on behalf of DCA. We did that back in early July. They responded to us in mid-August, and we have worked through one advisory point from their review to get to the point now where we, are prepared to ask this body to adopt a resolution for that transmittal. So the next step in that is, if you adopt it, it would go down to ARC. ARC would transmit to DCA. DCA would in turn transmit a letter to us indicating that we have obtained our qualified local government status for another year. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thanks, Director Gaines. Does council have any questions or comments in reference to this matter? Being that there are none, are there any Roswell residents that have any comments or questions on this particular matter at hand? Yes, sir. Welcome. Eric, please share everybody your name and where you live.
Eric Schumacher. I live off of Chafin Road. I just noticed a small typo in the resolution itself. There's a date of 2022 in there that I believe should be 2023. Okay, thank you.
Let's see, it's in the resolution itself, Derek? Talk about April 19th, 2022? Yes. Thank you, sir, very much for catching that. Yes, sir. Any other Roswell residents like to comment on this particular matter at hand? Being that there are none, I bring it back to council for any additional comments or questions. All right, that being said, Councilmember Palermo, would you like to make a motion?
Motion to approve the adoption of the short-term work program and capital improvement element.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Mortland. All those in favor, please raise your hands.
And to clarify, of course, mine includes the correction that was pointed out.
Just to clarify, it does include the correction by Councilmember Palermo. Thank you, April 19th, 2023. That's correct. All right, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you very much. It passes unanimously. Councilmember Palermo, you have the last community development item.
Item number 3, approval of Tree Bank Fund Administration FY 2024 project list and approval of budget amendment 245-714-08-08-14-23 in the amount of $568,000. Ms. Bromberg?
Thank you. This is the step in the process necessary for council to approve the projects to allow those to be funded. Just a reminder that it is section 12.1.7 in the code that does allow for the funds to be allocated to projects. They are for the sole purpose of planting and maintaining trees and other applicable landscaping. The updated spreadsheet that's been provided to you, there's actually an 11 by 17 larger print that's in front of you for those like me who need glasses to be able to read the small print. There's a couple of minor changes that I want to go over, but just quickly, this is all of the projects on one list that shows a prioritization by department, along with the funds and then the anticipated project start and project end, which council asked us to bring forward to tonight's meeting. There have been a couple of changes. So the total dollar amount ask has gone down a little bit, and I will highlight those. The first is project number 8 for Rec and Parks, which is the Old Roswell Cemetery tree planting plan. They actually were able to make a minor reduction in the total amount that they would need for that project. Based on what they plan on completing in fiscal 24. So it's a reduction from 40,000 to 25,000. Project number 9, based on the schedule that's associated with the RDOT project that's also along that same area, they don't anticipate that funding being necessary until fiscal year 25. So they've actually removed it as an ask, which is another $15,000, I believe. And then one more correction and a change. Project number 3 for transportation. I have been incorrectly referring to that as Fraser Street because I forgot it changes names when you cross over Norcross. So it's actually Forest Street. So just wanted to make sure I highlighted that just in case there's any question. And then the last thing for transportation is project number 4. They need some more direction on that. And then based on some of the other projects and timing, they have proposed that that project also be moved to fiscal 25, so they've reduced the funding, I believe it was $50,000 for that line item. So there is actually about $80,000 of unallocated funds out of the total that's currently available in the Tree Bank Fund today. I am happy to run through any of the projects or specifics on any questions about the scope included for those projects. In the master sheet that is in your packet, as well as the larger print, the blue bold text was what we presented at committee this last time, which was the enhancement discussion about the scope. And then the red are the changes where the recommendations were made by the department heads related to their projects. And then if you have any specific questions about the start and end dates or the technical scope, the departments are here to answer your questions.
Thanks, Lenore. Council, any thoughts, comments, or questions for Ms. Bromberg or on the subject at hand? Councilmember Beeson.
Ms. Bromberg, could you provide clarity on, I know the last time that we originally heard this in a council meeting, the public presented a question about why we also included shrubs and small trees in the tree bank fund. Could you provide clarity on why that's important and the variation is necessary?
Absolutely. So the reason behind doing that is, number one, we do have some smaller trees that actually classify as a shrub. For example, hollies is one. That's just an example. It may not be a native plant, but it's just an example of a bush that actually can be work as a tree. And so when we were looking at some of these plans, we found that being able to provide the multi-trophic layers of vegetation at the low level, mid and upper story, which is important to the natural vegetation in a lot of the areas that we were doing these plantings, the ask was made to council to expand that list to include some small shrubs. It is not the bulk of the work that's being done. The primary portion of the project, whether it's count or cost, is the tree planting, and then the shrubs are really just an accessory that goes along with that tree planting in order to provide a good final product.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. Councilmember Hills.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll compliment that directive from Councilmember Beeson. That I'm delighted that that's actually in there. I feel like to put in a bunch of trees and not finish out the job would be a sad affair. And I'm very much focused on aesthetics and the way that our city looks, so that we have some flexibility in here. While obviously it's called the Tree Bank Fund to put in trees, but that we have some flexibility in there, and our department heads, in respect to this list, know where that fine line is, where we have a little more here, maybe a little less there. But I'm certainly in favor of that. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Lee. Councilmember Palermo.
Excellent, thank you. I just want to give staff credit on two things. So first of all, thank you for what you presented in committee. Really helpful, the blue writing to clarify, for example, the Arbor Day celebration. Definitely concerning if you just read that and think it's a $5,000 party, but making it clear that it's purely for the tree planting, and that's 100% what that money is going towards, which is the purpose of the fund. And also, just great job with staff as well. Just with the details regarding just the native plants and native trees aspects. There's a lot of environmental benefits of that, ones that we certainly presented and discussed a lot at committee back in 2021, I believe. And with that, so to see, that was never even a discussion prior to 2020 and 2021. But now you can see a lot of them having 100%, 74%, and just a lot of focus on that, which again have many different benefits to the environment of Roswell and therefore the people of Roswell. So great job and thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your leadership on this too. And yes, sir, Councilmember Morthland.
One last thing to add is we have many projects that are on this list that are split up by departments. And can you tell us how those projects were aligned in priority order, just so everybody has that idea?
I would have to defer to the various department heads on exactly how they did the prioritization. They did not share that with me. If you have a specific one, I can ask them to come up and
That's the answer I was looking for, is the department heads prioritized
Yes,
this
sir,
list.
that is correct.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions from council? Any Roswell residents who would like to speak on this particular matter at hand? Being that there are none, I bring it back to council for any additional thoughts, comments, or questions. Lenore, that's your last chance. This is your last chance right up there. It's your last chance at the podium right now. You get unqualified free time. You can just let it go. Now, anything else from anybody for Lenore before we leave her? All right, any additional thoughts, comments, or questions? Lenore, thank you. Great job as always. And with that, Councilmember Palermo, do you have a motion you'd like to make, sir?
Motion to approve this project list with this budget amendment in the amount of $568,000.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. So you're asking for an amendment to the approval of the Tree Bank Fund Administration FY 2024 project list and approval of budget amendment 2457141-081423 in the amount of $568,000?
That is correct.
That's your motion. Thank you very much. Do I have a second to that motion? Seconded from Councilmember Hills. All in favor of passing the motion, please raise your hands. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And again, thank you, Lenore. All right. Next is the Finance Department. I didn't know we had you tonight. Christine, it's your item. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Item number 4, approval of an ordinance to adopt a millage rate of 4.949 for fiscal year 2024. This is the first reading and will be presented by Deputy Director Georgette McCrae.
Thank you so much, Christine. City Attorney David, would you read the ordinance, please, sir?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance to adopt the millage rate. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell wish to establish a millage rate of 4.949. The millage rate has a component of 4.049 mills for general fund operating and capital improvements budget, and a component of .900 mils for servicing bonded indebtedness. If approved, this is the first reading.
Thank you, David, very much. And as Councilmember Pro Tem Hall just mentioned before, welcome, Georgette. We're glad to have you. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilmember Hall. Okay, so this is the first reading for approval of the ordinance to adopt FY24 millage rate. So some background, FY 2024 budget adopted by Mayor and Council on June 12th. Digest has been received from Fulton County. And feedback received at the August 15th committee to advertise the rollback millage rate. It was advertised on September 7th and September 14th. So millage rate hearings, first reading tonight, second reading, if approved tonight, will be Monday, September 25th at the council meeting. What is the millage rate? So in layman's terms, millage rate equals property tax rate. 1 mil equals $1 for every $1,000 of your property's assessed value. Roswell residents are affected by 3 different millage rates from 3 different local governments. So Fulton County Schools, Fulton County, and City of Roswell. So Fulton County Schools millage rate this coming year is 17.14, Fulton County 9.05, and Roswell proposed rate 4.949. So Roswell millage rate, so the millage rate reduction proposed for FY24 for the maintenance and operation is increased of 0.314. And the debt service is, did I say that right? Yeah, with the increase of, no, the reduction.
It's a decrease of 0.314.
Yeah, a reduction proposed for FY24 maintenance and operation is a decrease of 0.314. And the increases in the debt service, which is due to the new bond issuance, will be 0.8 because it's going from 0.1 to 0.9. So millage rate deduction saves average Roswell home $575,072.22. So here's a millage rate history. Roswell's millage rate has dropped by nearly 1 mil since FY 2018. That's approximately $116 in annual savings for the average home. And millage rate comparisons for our neighboring cities. So Roswell falls second to the lowest of Johns Creek, Alpharetta's first, Milton, and Sandy Springs. So property tax digest update. So tax year 2022, tax year 2023, it raised $807 million, a total of $7.371 billion for tax year 2022, $8.414 billion for tax year 2023, which is an increase of about $1 billion. So this is just a percentage, and the percentages stay the same. It's just a little increase. So this is homestead exemption. So for homestead exemption, so the homestead exemption result is in more than $6.7 million in tax savings for residents, average of $229 per household. This does not include the homestead tax grant that's received by Fulton County this year, the one-time grant. That will be $18,000 off of your assessed value only for the M&O for each property. Floating homestead exemption. So estimated revenue impact for the FY24 budget. So adopting the rollback millage rate of 4.049 will result in approximately $950,000 in less revenue than anticipated in FY24. Mayor and council set aside enough funding in FY24 general fund to allow the adoption of the rollback rate. So today, consideration and approval of the first reading. Second reading will be September 25th. I will entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, Georgette, very much. Council have any thoughts, comments, or questions for Georgette or in period? Councilmember Palermo.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. McCray. Great presentation, and appreciate that. So I have a question and a comment. So first of all, a question I have is when you showed the breakout between the commercial and residential, was that purely tax digest, or is that including all revenue of business taxes, et cetera, or is that purely just based on property values in the digest?
Which,
Nope, forward, yep.
this one?
Yes.
So that's purely based on property tax digest.
Okay, so that does not include the, just other revenue, for example, business taxes, et cetera?
No, it
Okay.
does not.
Excellent. Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
And then just going in general for the, with the rollback rate. So again, I definitely appreciate that for a second year in a row, this mayor and council is going back to the rollback rate, which most cities do not do, and certainly don't do 2 years in a row. Obviously, there's the bond piece, which ultimately came down to voters deciding last year with the mayor and council making and staff, so many staff working a lot of nights doing those road shows, walking through all the bond details and really answering all questions with a detailed presentation. So obviously, voters had decided regarding the bonds, but for the piece that the mayor and council purely control, I'm just really glad that after many years of doing tax increases on the M&O, really glad that for a second year in a row it is the rollback rate. And obviously, I'm not seeking re-election. I will not be here next year, but I'm certainly hoping that the mayor and council continue this pattern that we've just started last year, which is continuing to go to the rollback rate. So just really great job and really appreciate the work that went into decreasing the operating budget.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. Thank you, Georgette, for the great presentation. And again, thank you to the staff on working on this budget. We know that it was a very, very painful process because it was a new process. I did just want to follow up on Councilmember Palermo's note. The last time we did back-to-back rollback rates was back in the year 2000, so over 22 years ago. And I do hope that I have support of this council and mayor to continue to make that our goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hall. Any thoughts, comments, or questions from council? Thank you very much. Any comments from Roswell residents on this matter? Yes, sir. Welcome. Please share everybody with your name and where you live. Welcome back.
Yes, good evening. Frederick Guillino, 145 Longwater Cove. Actually, more than a question is, more than a comment, it's really a question. I'm trying to get a sense of that debt servicing, whether this is basically what is going to be a fixed amount based on the millage rate for this year that is going to be essentially extended for 20 or 30 years, depending on the bond package that you use. I'm just trying to get a sense of whether this is an indication of what is going to be for the next foreseeable future, or whether this is just a little peak and then we're going to have a kind of an expanding funnel going forward. So if perhaps you could provide some clarification on that, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Frederick. Thank you, sir. Georgette, you want to address that?
Sure. So this rate is based on the amount that was already, that we have sold for the bond so far, which is the 86.2 million. So this is to repay that, which started in August of 2023. So essentially, it will go up the more we sell the bonds, but we don't know the exact amount yet.
Thanks, Georgette.
Welcome.
Any thoughts, comments, or questions from Roswell residents? Thank you so much. At this time, I bring it back to council. Any additional thoughts, comments, or questions from council? Yes, sir. Councilmember Palermo.
Just based on the bond question, I would mention, as I certainly was advocating last year during the bond discussion, that the potential amount to be drawn upon, I certainly see as a maximum, and my hope is through some just strategic aspects, whether it's public-private partnership, whether it's revenue-generating opportunities, et cetera, that there's not the need to draw the full amount. For example, on the parking deck is an example where I think there could be some ways to hopefully get get to really build a public parking deck in downtown, which obviously is something that's going to happen. And I certainly hope there'll be ways for that to be done, finding a way to save money and reduce the cost of it while still giving residents the benefits of more parking downtown to expand our walkable downtown. So I just want to mention that even though there's that total amount of the bonds, that doesn't mean necessarily that's the total amount that ends up being drawn in the end of the day.
Thank you,
Or
Mike.
at the end of the day. I know one of my attorneys at work corrected me when I used to say in the end of the day. It's at the end of the day. He told me before one of my presentations.
Any additional thoughts, comments, or questions from council? I will just make one, and I probably will share with this in some greater detail at the State of the City speech on Thursday, September 28th, given at the Roswell Rotary Club, which I hope there'll be lots of folks there to join us. So we're going to talk about several things. One thing we're going to talk about, Frederick, interesting enough, you find, is long-term thinking on revenue generation for a city and how a city does that. And if you look at the historic nature of most cities in the 20th century and early parts of the 21st century, it's pretty typical. Obviously, it's all based upon property tax is probably one of the primary drivers for revenue. And so it's our hope, our aspiration is that we find other sources for revenue, long-term, short-term, mid-term, and long-term, to begin to continue to reduce the burden on the taxpayer, both the resident and ultimately the commercial, the business side as well. That's one piece of the equation. And the second piece of the equation is this council, staff, and leadership team has brought zero-based budgeting and to this city, and it's had real impact. And if you looked in just the last, really ostensibly 15 months, this elected leadership along with the staff has reduced the M&O millage rate by over half. And if you look at that from an historical perspective, that's almost unprecedented. And it's real easy to say, and I would say to you, and I would challenge, look at all of our sister cities and share with me one that's had back-to-back rollback reduction rates. You're not going to find them. So this group of people, this elected leadership and the staff is serious about, one, how it manages your money, and two, it's serious about how it's going to generate revenue both in the short term, midterm, and long term, and finding other ways to generate revenue outside of saying, hey, traditional forms of property tax. And you're going to see us, I think, introduce some creative ways over the next 12 to 18 months that I think you're going to find refreshing from a government or city's perspective. That's all I'll say on that. But I would say, please check the record, please check zero-based budgeting, and please check and see what's done in terms of rollback rates. I know a lot of times it gets very confusing, but the bottom line is what is under direct control of this council has been reduced by over a half in the last 15 months, and that's dramatic. So that's all I'll say. Thank you, Georgette, for your presentation. All right, that being said, Councilmember Hall, do you have a motion that you'd like to make?
Yes, sir, Mayor. Motion to approve item number 4, approval of the ordinance to adopt a millage rate of 4.949 for FY 2024. This is the first reading.
Thank you very much, Christine. Is there a second on this motion? Second by Councilmember Mortland. All those in favor that are in approval of this particular motion, please raise your hands. Thank you very much. It passes unanimously in the first reading. Thank you very much. Thank you, Georgette. City Attorney Davidson, would you read your item under the City Attorney's report?
Thank you, Mayor. The only item I have is a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel litigation and real estate.
Thanks. Do I have a motion for closure? Motion made by Councilmember Sarah Beeson. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Mike Palermo. All those in favor of going to closure, please raise your hands. We go to closure. It passes unanimously. Very, very much. Being that there are no other items, this mayor and council meeting of September 18th, 2023 is adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.